The S300 MK2 SE are Buchardt Audio's entry-level speakers, and they definitely haven't had as much YouTube love as the more expensive S400. So does that mean they're any good? And how do they compare to the KEF LS50 Meta? Are they better? Are they worse? Let's find out. If you're new here, I am doing a Standmount speaker group mega test, and by mega I mean this many speakers and more are all being reviewed and compared to each other to try and give you the right advice to help you buy the right speakers for you, and also to try and find the best speaker of the bunch, the one that we can crown the best Standmount speaker in 2021, costing under £1,300. And if that's of interest to you, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. Let's be real here. You're probably watching this video because you're already familiar with Buchardt Audio and you're already interested in the speakers that they manufacture. And that's probably because you've seen a lot of other YouTube channels and reviewers, let's be real here again, give Buchardt Audio speakers high praise that's often seemingly too good to be true. However, if you're new to Buchardt Audio, they are a Danish HiFi manufacturer that make a range of passive and active speakers and also now an amplifier and some other bits. As a company, they operate a direct sale to customer business model, which means you buy your speakers directly from Buchardt and they ship them directly to you. And they offer their customers a 45-day home trial, which means you can buy and try any of their speakers for 45 days, return them in perfect condition for a full refund minus some return shipping costs, which I think seems more than fair as a system. And they also give 10 years warranty on their speakers, which is nice. The S300 MK2 SE are a passive, rear-ported, two-way speaker with a 1-inch fine weave soft fabric tweeter, so a soft dome tweeter, and a 6-inch mineral filled polypropylene mid-bass driver. They are very much a minimalist design and definitely no frills, as Buchardt say, except the speaker cable binding posts, which I think are very nice and really high quality and bespoke to Buchardt as well, which is a nice touch. Apart from that, you might not even know that you're looking at or listening to a Buchardt Audio speaker. They are extremely, plain and minimalist in design, maybe designed more to listen to than look at. I think this very unoffensive design would be, great in some regards because even the wife couldn't say no to this. And I think being tall and slim definitely helps to disguise how deep they are, a little bit like me. For a size comparison, look at them next to the LS50 Meta. There is a huge difference, and you could actually think that these speakers are in different price categories. The Buchardt cost €1,200, which includes shipping and import taxes all over the world. And according to Google, that puts the S300 at about £1,041, which puts them at about the exact same price as the LS50 Meta. For looks and build, the LS50 Meta do feel more premium, they are heavier, they feel more solid and inert, and they have a nicer finish. But the Buchardt are solid and heavy enough, and I think there's not going to be anybody who's going to be disappointed with the feel, the fit and the finish of the S300 speakers, bearing in mind they are designed to be no frills, and that is definitely what you get. Now, before I get into a deep dive comparison between the S300 and the LS50 Metas, I think I can sum up the S300 really quite nicely because they remind me of a combination or a cross between the Wharfedale Evo 4.2 and the Wharfedale Linton speakers. That's because they've got the big, warm sound of the Lintons, but with more of the soundstage space, clarity, and kind of overall soundstage presentation of the Evo 4.2. And they have the more easygoing sound of the Evo 4.2, but with a frequency response and kind of sound output that's more similar to the Wharfedale Lintons. So that there is a pretty nice combination. Setup of the S300 I found to be much easier than with the LS50 Meta. Yes, these were running before they were sent to me, which probably helped. Placing them in the usual spot in my room, I found it really quite easy to set, an optimum toe in and an optimum time alignment to get the sound to snap into focus. Now, interestingly, I started the setup with the speakers set quite straight. And I think a lot of audiophiles will probably use the S300 set like this because it does create a very wide soundstage. But the sound presentation from them reminded me of the Acoustic Energy AE300 that I reviewed last year in the last group test. So I did the exact same thing. I started to toe them in. And interestingly, as I started to toe them in, the central sound, the solidity of the central image started to improve, but I started to lose the width to the soundstage. And exactly the same situation as with the Acoustic Energies. I kept going with the toe in, and then the central image became really solid, full, and very, very tangible. And then the width to the soundstage came back and actually came back with improved fullness and clarity. Now, by comparison, I tried to do the exact same thing with the KEF LS50 Meta, and I found that as I was towing them in, the treble on their kind of top regions started to become a little bit too present, so I had to back the towing off more with the LS50 Meta. So that is quite a distinct difference between these two speakers straight away. Interestingly, when I measured the S300 as part of a Dirac Live calibration, there was some obvious, measured differences compared to the KEF LS50 Meta, but there was some similarities as well, which I definitely could not hear just from listening. The S300 from 300 Hz in my room tracked pretty linear with a good amount of consistency. Yes, not quite as smooth as the LS50 Meta in the treble, but still very good. Both speakers have a dip in the response in the same kind of frequency region, and both are two-way speakers, and maybe this is why. Where there is a very noticeable difference is in the bass outputs. The S300 measure much more like how floor standing speakers do in my room, whereas the LS50 Meta measured more like stand mount speakers do in terms of output and extension below 100 Hz. It was very easy for me to hear that the LS50 Meta and the Buchardt Audio S300 are definitely speakers designed to do different things. I feel like the LS50 Meta are designed to be the lowest distortion, highest accuracy, highest resolution, minimal character, stand mount or monitor speaker at the price point, whereas the S300 is not designed to be that speaker. It's designed to be a speaker with a character that creates a big, bold, smooth sound, a speaker that sounds, bigger than its physical size. And it's a speaker that is more forgiving of the system, the room, and the content quality. And the bass from them is smooth and articulate with good timing. And it's a room-filling type of bass, which is really important because this room-filling type of bass foundation and solidity creates a warmth to the sound, and it creates a foundation for the mid-range and treble to sit on, which makes both of those two things sound more pleasing, easygoing, and very easy to listen to. There is a trade-off though. The LS50 Meta, they deliver a bass that is punchier and tighter. So yes, it's not as big and it's not as room-filling, but the bass is tighter and more punchy. So the LS50 Metas do sound a little bit leaner and less full. But again, the bass can be tighter and more punchy. And I can give you a great example of this with the song by Christine and the Queens, Goya Soda. And the bass in that track from the LS50 Meta will hit and then tight roll off. Hit and tight roll off. The bass from the S300s, it's more room filling. So there's more push to the hit, but the hit isn't as tight and it isn't as hard. Room filling bass, roll off. LS50 Meta is hit, tight, roll off. And it's really quite a distinct difference. And I think in that particular song, I preferred the bass from the KEF LS50 Meta. However, in other music, the room filling, warmth and the solidity of sound makes more music more pleasing, more enjoyable to listen to. So it really is a case of preferring the bass from one speaker or the other, or just depending on the music. The mid-range and vocals from the S300 are big, solid, full and smooth, very easygoing and nicely articulate. And the vocals are really engaging and they have this smooth naturalness that I know a lot of audiophiles will really like, because I really liked it. I liked the male and female vocal delivery from every piece of music that I listened to. And there is quite, again, a contrast and distinct difference to the LS50 Meta and how they present their vocals. The LS50 Meta's vocals are, more carved out in stone. Again, tighter, crisper, more carved out in stone with more space around them, whereas the S300's vocals are big, full, solid, and more on the lush side. There is also a big difference with the treble. The S300 again has a smooth overall treble delivery with some nice detail and insight to it. Maybe the treble could be a little more refined, but I think that's me being overly harsh for a speaker at this price point. And interestingly, there was a nice amount of treble liveliness and insight and detail and presence coming from a soft dome tweeter without a big hike or lift in the treble response. Compared to the LS50 Meta, in their review, I mentioned that the treble could get a little bit crispy depending on the musical content, and I brought up the example of War of the Worlds Forever Autumn. Well, listening to that exact same track on the exact same system in the exact same room, you can still hear the points where the crispiness is with the S300, but the crispiness just isn't crispy. So maybe the S300 is smoothing over it a little bit, but I really don't care. That there not being that crispiness definitely makes that particular song less jarring, less harsh, and more easygoing and enjoyable to listen to. And I think it's important at this point to just clarify, yes, the S300 has a very smooth and easygoing overall listen, but there's still a good amount of intensity to music, a good amount of get up and go, a good amount of drive and rhythm to how the S300 sounds. So they are not a big ball of cotton wool. There's still a nice amount of bite and intensity and immediacy to how they sound. And I think more impressive than all of that was the subtlety within music, just little bits of musical information that would present themselves with a really nice amount of subtle clarity. And I feel like maybe some other speakers that have this type of warmer character wouldn't have presented those subtle bits of information with that much clarity. So overall, I think the S300 Mark II SE is a really cracking sounding speaker that for me was like putting on a very familiar, very comfortable pair of slippers, because this was my sound for a very good number of years, because it is a very gratifying way to listen to music. And I actually think the S300 Mark II SE is a great all-round speaker, a speaker that does everything well, doesn't do anything bad, that makes music, all music pretty much, sound very good, and some music sound great, but there's nothing that you can listen to that's ever that bad, which means that you can listen to a whole host of different music. But interestingly, comparing them to something like the KEF LS50 Meta, the strengths of the LS50 Metas do show the shorter comings of the S300. And there might be audiophiles that think that the S300 maybe play it a little safe, or there might be audiophiles that want a speaker that gives them, a crisper, more carved out, clear overall soundstage with more bite and crispness to the sound. Well, in that case, those audiophiles might prefer the LS50 Meta. So for my final thoughts, I said earlier in the video that Buchardt Audio seemed to have had a lot of praise from lots of other YouTube channels and hi-fi reviewers, and quite often that praise seems too good to be true. Well, I must say, hand on heart, after spending some time with the S300 Mark II SE, that praise is starting to seem justified. But I haven't made any final conclusions yet, because there are still a lot of speakers to look at and compare in this group test, with the next ones up being the ATC SCM11. And I'm really looking forward to hearing them and comparing them to the Buchardt S300s and the KEF LS50 Metas. You're not going to want to miss that. So again, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. You'll also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and maybe consider joining my Patreon. I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.